We are continuing our journey through the Gospel of Matthew. The Gospel of Matthew is written by the Apostle Matthew, one of the 12 apostles of Jesus. We are going to be reading from Matthew chapter 10 and verses 37 to 39, and I am going to be reading from the Weymouth translation. Anyone who loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me, and anyone who loves son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. And anyone who does not take up his cross and follow where I lead is not worthy of me. To save your life is to lose it. To lose your life for my sake is to save it. One of the things is, as you get older, is of course you have more memories, and the longer you serve and work in the church, the same applies. Now, some of this is not positive. I can remember back now, probably almost more than 2 decades ago, leading a Bible study. The particulars about the group have faded with time, but what remains is a young lady in my group at that time. I have nothing negative to say of her. She was a good person and all of that. All I know is at one point, she left our group, she moved in with her boyfriend, and decided that living common law was the way to go. Needless to say, that had an impact on her church experience. On the other end of the life experience spectrum, I can remember a church I was involved in, and this goes back several decades now. This person was a mature adult. She had adult children. She was also married to a husband who was an alcoholic. I remember one church service where God was working and moving, and she was required to respond in ways that were appropriate to God. Now, in order to understand the situation, you have to understand the dynamics of an alcoholic home. In order for that home to work, she had to submit and be submissive in attitude and mindset to that experience. What God was calling her to do was, by faith, to walk in such a way that she would assert her faith on that home and rebuke her husband and renounce that lifestyle. That came with risk. That came with the possibility of failure. And that came with a price that she was not willing to pay. So at that point, she left her faith to ensure the security that she understood within that home and family life. Two different cases, but two cases in which the relationship in this world trumped the relationship with Jesus Christ. One of the hindrances to following Jesus are relationships. In modern Western culture, relationships and romances are important cogs in personal growth and development. This mindset carries on even into the church. A casual sexual encounter in a hotel room is just a romantic encounter, not lust. My life with my same sex partner is an embrace of who and what I am as a person. We needed to get a divorce because we were no longer growing in our relationship with each other, and we were not finding personal fulfillment, growth, and development. In simple terms, our pursuit of relationships in the modern Western culture is a form of idolatry. I wish I could say that that was separate and distinct from life in the church, but often how people approach relationships in the church is not much different from those outside the church. The pursuit of relationships puts the emphasis on sexuality as the means to personal understanding and fulfillment. It puts the emphasis on me, and me. Modern culture has done a magnificent job of rebranding lust. Now, I'm not saying this as a compliment, I'm just noting what is true. If you have listened to popular music, you know that the focus tends to be on romance, and romance is often and expression of sexual experimentation, sexual relationships. We have been inundated in and through songs on radio, Spotify, and other forms of media about the power of love, romance, sex, and relationships. I can look back at several decades of television viewing and see how this form of entertainment often has worked as a means of propaganda for relationships, as the means to personal fulfillment. I believe that most of us in this culture do not realize how much popular entertainment is often a form of propaganda. Now, I'm not saying all, but there is enough to make this point. The Christian faith is not about the evils of human sexuality. The post apostolic church, that is, say, the 2nd through 5th century CE, under the influence of prevailing cultural ideas, brought into the idea of the corruption of human sexuality through the idea that the material world was corrupt. This led to a negative view of sexuality and in the process elevated the idea of virginity. And so we embraced in almost 1,000 years of church history in the Western world, where virginity was seen as a higher form of Christian living and practice. Marriage is real and good in the Christian tradition. Marriage is for life. Marriage in the home is to be a place where the faith is taught and nurtured. Marriage is not about personal fulfillment. Marriage is a place of service and ministry for the Christian. A relationship that forces us to confront our sinfulness and brokenness. A relationship that confronts our me-centeredness and our desire to live for self and self alone. You see, marriage and family provides us a place to practice those truths of Christian life and living that are antithetical to the values, beliefs, and practices of the world that we find ourselves in. A truly Christian marriage is one that creates authentic servants for Jesus Christ and seeks through the marriage to live as a servant of Jesus Christ.